The text describes the teachings of a figure named Lavrentiy Chernigovskiy, born in 1868 and died in 1950, about the current time and the coming Antichrist. During conversations, he mentioned predictions about war, martyrdom, and the end times. He warned that only believers would be counted among the martyrs, while non-believers would face damnation. Some individuals would be taken by the Lord due to their weakness, while others would be purified through illnesses. There would be those who would wash away their sins in war and be counted among the martyrs. The strongest would be left by the Lord for a meeting with him. Chernigovskiy often spoke to his followers about the need to be vigilant in the last days. He mentioned a future war where hardly anyone would remain except those in hiding. There would be ongoing conflicts leading to the emergence of 2 or 3 remaining states, who would select one ruler for the entire universe. True Christians would be exiled, while the weak and elderly would desperately follow them. He frequently discussed the coming of the Antichrist, warning about a time when people would be forced to pledge allegiance to a single ruler on earth, with strict population counting measures being implemented. And then, the wife will begin to persuade her husband. "Come on, husband, let's sign up. We have children after all. Otherwise, we won't be able to buy anything for them." And the husband will say, "Dear wife, as you wish, but I am ready to die before signing for the Antichrist." Such a touching picture of the future, the elder concluded. The time will come, Father Lavrentiy narrated, when even the inactive temples, closed down, will be renovated, equipped not only from the outside but also from the inside. The domes will be gilded like the temples, as well as the bell towers, and when they finish, it will be time for the reign of the Antichrist. Pray that the Lord continues to grant us this time for strengthening, because a dreadful time awaits us. And you see how everything is cunningly being prepared. All the temples will be in the greatest splendor, like never before, and it will not be allowed to enter those temples. The Antichrist will be crowned as a king in the magnificent Temple of Jerusalem, with the participation of the clergy and the Patriarch. There will be free entry into Jerusalem and entry for everyone. But then try not to go, because everything will be done to deceive. The Antichrist will come from a promiscuous virgin, a Jewess of the 12th tribe of bloodline. Even as a child, he will be very capable and clever, especially since at the age of 12, while walking with his mother in the garden, he will encounter Satan, who will enter him with the most profound idea. The boy will shudder with fear, and Satan will say, "Do not be afraid, I will help you." From that morning, the Antichrist will grow in human form. At his coronation, when the creed is being read, he will not allow it to be read correctly. During his coronation, when the creed is being recited, he will not allow it to be read correctly. Where there should be words about Jesus Christ, like Son of God, he will deny this, and will only acknowledge himself. And at that moment, the Patriarch will exclaim that this is the Antichrist, and he will be killed for it. During the Antichrist's coronation, he will be wearing gloves, and when he takes them off to make the sign of the cross, the Patriarch will notice that he has claws on his fingers instead of nails, and this will serve as further confirmation that he is the Antichrist. Yanok and Elia will descend from the sky, and they will also explain to everyone and exclaim that this is the Antichrist. Do not believe him, and he will kill them, but they will resurrect and fly to heaven. The Antichrist will be highly trained in all of Satan's cunning tricks, and he will perform false miracles. The whole world will hear and see him. He will brand his people with seals, and he will hate Christians. The final persecution of Christian souls who refuse Satan's seal will begin. Persecution will immediately start in the land of Jerusalem, and then the last blood will be shed everywhere on earth in the name of our Redeemer, Jesus Christ. Many of you, my children, will live to see these dreadful times. The seals will be such that it will be immediately apparent whether a person has accepted them or not. Christians will not be able to buy or sell anything. But do not despair. The Lord will not abandon his children. You do not need to fear. There will be churches, but a true Orthodox Christian will not be able to attend them, as there will be no offering of the bloodless sacrifice of Jesus Christ, only a satanic assembly. The churches will exist, But an Orthodox Christian will not be able to attend them, because there will be no bloodless sacrifice of Jesus Christ offered there, but instead it will be a gathering of all things satanic. And because of this lawlessness, the earth will cease to bear fruit. It will crack open from desolation, forming such crevices that a person could fall. Christians will be persecuted or exiled to desolate places, but the Lord will help and sustain his followers. Jews will also be herded into one place. Some Jews, who truly lived by the laws of Moses, will not accept the mark of the Antichrist. They will wait and observe his actions. They know that their ancestors did not recognize Christ as the Messiah. But even here, God will grant that their eyes be opened, and they will not accept the mark of Satan. They will recognize Christ, and they will reign with Christ, and all the weak people will follow Satan. When the earth does not yield crops, people will come to him asking for bread, and he will reply, "The earth will not yield bread. I cannot do anything." There will be no water either. All rivers and lakes will dry up. This calamity will last for 3.5 years. But for the sake of his chosen ones, the Lord will shorten those days. In those days there will still be strong warriors, pillars of orthodoxy, who will be under the powerful influence of the heartfelt prayer of Jesus, and the Lord will cover them with his almighty grace, and they will not be deceived by the false signs prepared for all people. Once again, I repeat that it will not be permissible to go into those traps. Their grace will not be present. Grace will not be upon them. One sister, listening to this conversation, asked, "How to live? Would you not want to live until that time? And you, young one, can you live?" said the elder. "How frightening!" exclaimed the sister. "But you choose one of two, either earthly or heavenly. There will be war," the father continued, "and where it passes, there will be no people. And before that, the Lord will send small illnesses to weak people, and they will die. And during the time of the Antichrist, there will be no illnesses, and the third war, the universal one, will be not for repentance, but for extermination." The sister asked, "So will everyone perish?" "No, and if believers wash themselves in blood, they will be counted among the martyrs. And if they are not believers, they will go to hell," the father replied. "And until the number of fallen angels is replenished, the Lord will not come to judge. But in the last days, the Lord will include both the living and those written in the book of life in the number of angels to make up for the missing count of fallen angels." The repair of the temples will continue until the coming of the Antichrist, and everywhere there will be unprecedented beauty, the father said. "And for our church, be attentive to its external appearance during repairs. Pray more. Go to church while you still can, especially for the liturgy where the bloodless sacrifice for the Greeks of the whole world is offered. Confess and partake of the body and blood of Christ more often, and the Lord will strengthen you. The merciful Lord will save those Jews who refuse to accept the mark of the Antichrist and declare that it is deception, not our Messiah," the father said. Recently, the father and one hierodiacon, George, were conversing, shedding tears bitterly, saying, "Many of the clergy will perish during the time of the Antichrist." The elder had a conversation with Deacon George recently, shedding bitter tears, saying, "Many of the clergy will perish at the hands of the Antichrist." Father George said, "How can I not perish, as I am a deacon?" The elder replied, "I don't know." Father Deacon began to cry, falling at the feet of the elder, and begged him to pray for him to avoid hell. The elder stood up, prayed, and said, "All right, that's how it goes. He fell ill, died, and entered the kingdom of heaven." And this prophecy was fulfilled. We knew this deacon from the Kiev Lavra. He was a very virtuous and melodious monk, suddenly fell ill in the head, and died shortly after. The elder often lamented and tearfully prayed or shared something with tears. The sisters would try to calm him down, to which he objected, "How can one not cry when so many human souls are lost?" The elder had a strong love for everyone, for which the Lord endowed him with the gift of heartfelt prayer and foresight, and the abomination of desolation in every home. The Antichrist will be trained in all satanic cunning and will give false signs. The whole world will hear and see him simultaneously, the holy servant of God, in the testimonies of Archbishops Simon, Theodosius, bishops and Archimandrite Theophan said, Blessed and thrice blessed is the person who does not desire to see the face of the God-hating Antichrist. Those who will see and hear him speak blasphemously. Those who are enticed by his promises of earthly goods will go to meet him with worship, and together with him will perish and burn in eternal fire. They asked the elder, "How will this happen?" They asked the elder, "How will this be?" The holy elder answered with tears, "But in the holy place there will stand the abomination of desolation, showing vile seducers of the world, and they will deceive people who have turned away from God and perform false miracles. And after them will come the Antichrist, and the whole world will see him at once." The fathers asked the saint, "Where in the holy place?" "In the church." The venerable one replied, "Not in the church, but in every home, in the corner where the holy icons now stand and hang. Seductive devices will stand, to please people. Many will say, 'We need to watch and listen to the news,' and there the Antichrist will appear in the news. Father the priest, monk, and deacon strictly ordered not to cut their hair and shave their beards according to the church regulations. He said it was a great shame for bishops to be shaven and trimmed. Father also spoke about spiritual personalities. There are apostles and there are Judases. Only the faces have changed, but the time is the same. Father was a zealous defender of the Orthodox faith, church, and traditions, and not as written in the life, that the father was dissatisfied with Vladika Kubarisa for replacing the weekday service with the all-night vigil. Much dissatisfaction was expressed by the Archimandrite Father Lavrentiy towards Vladika for shortening the church services. Father said it was harder to write than to sing and read. He was dissatisfied that they would not read the psalm, and without fear of God they would shout glory. During the liturgy, they interrupt the prayer for the Holy Communion, open the royal gates, read the prayers chaotically, shout, and the minister, with the fear of God, continues, not having finished the prayer book, and the divine service. The text describes a scenario where during the liturgy, improper behavior and shortcuts taken by clergy will lead to damnation, while the faithful will be saved through prayer, fasting, and good deeds. It warns of a coming time of great disaster on earth, including a world war with powerful bombs, leading to a near-apocalyptic scenario where only few people will remain and a new king will be chosen. This king will be born of a sinful virgin from the 12th bloodline of a royal dynasty, appearing beautiful to the wicked but terrifying to the righteous. The king will be seen riding in a royal mantle on a chariot, walking in a garden and contemplating the building of his kingdom. In the royal robe will ride a chariot and reach the garden, will disembark and walk through the garden, contemplating how to build his kingdom. Suddenly a chasm will open, water will appear, and from the water, as if someone will spill out, and he will feel like someone is behind him. He will turn around and see something terrible, a monstrous sight, and in fear he will scream, opening his mouth wide. At that moment, a spirit will enter him, and from that moment on, he will become the Antichrist. Even earlier, as one elder said, the Antichrist will sit on the throne in Jerusalem, now the pumpkin tied in the water, and the Lord will release him, and he will enter into the king of the Antichrist. Iria Nikifor Grigory and Father Vasily, from Gizin, contradicted the elder's vision and spoke differently about it. He replied to them, "Fathers and brothers, you do not know and do not understand one thing, that I speak not only for Russia but for the whole world. My words are true, and the Holy Spirit revealed them to me by grace. Will you live to see the Antichrist?" The nuns from the convent with 2 novices visited the elder from Gizin for tea, and during lunch he said, "You and I, Mother Superior, will not live to see the Antichrist, but your novices will." This was in 1948. Both novices were born in 1923, as told by Sister Anne. "I need to see. When Father Lavrentiy sat down to eat, he would say, 'I do not want to eat, but I need to see all of you in order to tell you what awaits you all.' When Father Lavrentiy sat down at the table to eat, he would wait for everyone and say, 'I do not want to eat, but I need to see all of you in order to tell you what awaits everyone.' Then he would cry and say, 'If you only knew what awaits people and what all of us will face, if you only knew how people suffer in hell, how it will all end.' Father Lavrentiy would say, 'Do not be surprised when you hear how people pray in the churches. like those in golden hats, saying not to read the Psalms and then the hours. The Lord will endure for a while, but then it will all end. The second coming is not far off, written from the words of Sister M. Remember this. This was still during my father's lifetime. I, M, remembered her conversation with Father Lavrentiy. We were in great poverty, could not recover from the war damage. And I went to the elder Lavrentiy to ask for a blessing for the secret wearing of the undercassock. And he told me, not everyone in the world will perish, and not everyone in the monastery will be saved. Do you understand? It is not yet time. I started asking to enter the monastery again, because it is very difficult to be saved in the world. But Father told me, monks and monastic schemers will be in seventh heaven. But if you knew what awaits those maidens who live in the world, those schemers will be told by the Lord to give place to those who lived outside the monastery, and they will surpass them by far. Do you understand that the outsiders will be higher before God than the monastics? Do you understand? Asked the elder. The old man asked. I didn't understand anything, was my response. Then at least remember this, said the priest. If you live by love, a pious widow had a dream. I see, as if in the Trinity Monastery, Father Lavrentiy of Chernigov with the nuns. There were many sisters, and the choir sings, Rejoice, Queen. And suddenly the old man rises into the air, and with him only a few mothers, 7 or 8. I ran up and asked him why so few nuns had risen up. But with these words, without receiving an answer, I woke up. When I went to Father Lavrentiy, he said, As you dreamed, so it is. If one were to live by love, everything would be good. If someone has a piece of bread, it is to share with others, so that no one would go hungry. Then both would have charity, and everyone would be saved. But with us, it's the opposite. Whoever has a piece of bread causes great scandals. That's why so few rise up in the air, because there is no love. The priest explained this dream to me in this way. Few are saved. The Venerable Father Lavrentiy of Chernigov repeatedly said that souls go to hell like people leave the church on holidays, and to heaven like people go to church on weekdays. The priest often sat and wept, feeling sorry for the people who perish. How many people are packed in hell, like herring in a barrel, said the old man Lavrentiy. His children comforted him, and he replied through tears, You do not see, and if you did, how sad it is, and recently, hell will be filled with young men. In recent times, hell will be filled with young men. A dreadful time shortly before the reign of the Antichrist, and closed temples will be renovated, equipped not only from the outside, but also from the inside. The domes of the temples and the bell towers will be gilded, and when the main renovation is completed, the time of the Antichrist's reign will come. Pray that the Lord will prolong this time for our comfort. A terrible time awaits us. The renovations of the temples will continue until the very coronation of the Antichrist, and we will experience unprecedented blindness. Elder Lavrentiy of Chernigov said this, and you can see how all this treachery is being prepared. The elder continued with tears. All the temples will be in the greatest splendor like never before, but it will not be possible to attend them, as the bloodless sacrifice of Jesus Christ will not be offered there. Understand, there will be churches, but an Orthodox Christian will not be able to visit them, as there will be a satanic gathering. Apocalypse 2:9 among them. I repeat once again, it will not be possible to attend those temples. There will be no grace in them. The Venerable One spoke about the Antichrist. He will be crowned as a king in the magnificent restored temple in Jerusalem, with the participation of the Russian clergy and the Patriarch. There will be free entry and exit from Jerusalem for everyone. But then, try not to go, because everything will be done to deceive. Matthew 24:24 among them. He will be highly trained in all satanic tricks and will perform false miracles. The whole world will hear and see him. He will mark his people with Satan's seal. He will hate Orthodox Russia. The main peacemaker, the Venerable Elder Lavrentiy of Chernigov, often spoke about the Antichrist. The main peacemaker, Venerable Elder Lavrentiy of Chernigov, often spoke about the Antichrist. The time will come when there will be worldwide battles and a global war will break out. And in the midst of it all, they will say, Let us choose one king for the entire universe. And they will choose. They will choose the Antichrist as the universal king and the main peacemaker on earth. Pay attention. Be cautious. as soon as they start voting for one person worldwide. Know that it is already him, and that voting is not allowed. On earth, abysses and demons will emerge. They will be everywhere. In people who will not be baptized, will not pray, but only kill others, and murder is the original sin. Interested in tempting people more with this sin. Amen. Elder Lavrentiy spoke to his spiritual children, saying that in the last days abysses will emerge on earth, and demons, as the Father called them, will come out and be in people who will not be baptized, will not pray, but only kill each other. Demons will find it interesting to tempt more people with this sin. Satan himself, coming out of the abyss, will enter a 12-year-old boy who will later become the Antichrist, the main soul killer. We must be vigilant and cautious, as the Antichrist is already near. Look at how many different prophetic indications there are for the end of our century, and not a single one forever following. Could it be that it will not happen? Our time is special. Our venerable father Elder Lavrentiy of Chernigov said that when the terrible judgment day comes, it will last as long as the singing of the 6 psalms. Our venerable father, Father Lavrentiy of Chernigov, said that when the dreadful judgment comes, it will last as long as the chanting of the hexapsalmos. He said that the Lord will not differentiate between who sinned, when, and how. Every person, through good deeds and prayers, purifies themselves and becomes bright, while a person's sins make them dark, soiled like tar. There is no need to inquire about their sins. Everything will be visible, and they will judge themselves. You will be justified by your actions and condemned by your actions. At the end of time, there will be many people mentally ill, and it will be very difficult for a person if the enemy nests in their mind. But if they endure to the end, they will be saved. Souls come like people from a church on a feast day, and to heaven like people to a church on a weekday. Remember this. Once a venerable elder in Lavrentiy said that we have very few archpriests, so later, Mother Regin and 6 sisters came to him and unfolded the church calendar, saying, "Father, look, there are so many archpriests." Father in Lavrentiy sadly looked and said, "I see only 4, and a 5th will come." And with a heavy sigh, he began to speak, wiping his eyes from tears. The last days are coming, when even the clergy will be tainted with vile worldly wealth. They will have cars and country houses. They will visit resort places, and the prayer of Jesus will be forsaken. They will forget it, and then they themselves will go, not on the right path, leading young people astray. They will forget about themselves. Then they will go, not the way they should go, but they will lead young people astray. But you, be wise and prudent. Listen to their beautiful words, but do not follow their actions. And to you, I say, and I deeply regret this, that you will be buying houses, wasting time cleaning large, beautiful monastery premises, and you will not have enough time for prayer, although you were given the gift of indifference. Salvation in the last days is not difficult, but it is wise. Those who overcome all these temptations, they will be saved. They will be among the first. The former will be like lamps, and the latter like the sun. For you and your abodes. Others are prepared, but you listen and take heed. So, with his discerning mind looking into the future, Saint Lavrentiy placed his warning to his numerous spiritual disciples. The beloved Father Saint, Lavrentiy of Chernigov, said, "The other one struggles like a frog on a spit and wants to be saved." And he then pointed down with his finger to hell, and another one lives haphazardly here and there, and the Father pointed with his hand towards the sky, as if indicating steps. It is necessary for there to be peace in the soul. Salvation is not difficult, but it is wise. At the same time, one must be wise with time, and you will be saved. Prayer and labor will overcome everything, and lead to the kingdom of heaven. To be a shorn and shaven archpriest is a great disgrace. There are always apostles and Judases, only the faces change, but the time remains the same. Many of these priests will perish due to their negligence and unfruitful spiritual life. Many of these priests will perish due to their carelessness and unfruitful spiritual life. The majority of the clergy will adorn the Holy Church and lead the people. They will not think about their own salvation, let alone others. The elders said that the clergy will start shortening the services. First the psalms, then the hours. The Lord will not tolerate it, and when he strikes like a bell tower in height, they will fall down below, and out of fear, Many will call upon the name of the Lord, and, believe me, they will be saved. To one deacon, who is still alive but already old, the elder directly said, "You will live until the time of the Antichrist. Do not be afraid, but tell everyone that it is he, and there is no need to fear." During times of distress, the elder blessed two sisters to go to the Ivorian land. There will be no evil, no persecution, and at other times it will be insignificant, as the Mother of God protects that place, the elder said, and there will be persecution in Russia. For all these inconveniences, for this cold, hunger, that a person endures for God, there awaits a reward in heaven. For the heavenly bridegroom, one can and should endure, that's all. The elder commanded to pray and fast. On feast days and on Sundays, under no circumstances should one work, even if it hails from the sky. Let everything fall where it is. The elder instructed to strictly observe the midweek Friday and all fasts. He blessed many to fast on Mondays, along with Wednesdays and Fridays, and for some to abstain from meat, saying, "The kingdom of God is not about bread and wine." The elder advised many to attend evening and morning prayers, and to attend the liturgy daily during the Epiphany. The father advised many to attend evening and morning prayers, and to attend liturgy daily. The father said that holidays should be observed in the church and followed at home. When one of the sisters asked the Venerable Lavrentiy of Chernigoff what to do to be recorded in the Book of Life, the father replied, "You must recite the prayer of John Chrysostom, 'Lord, do not deprive us of your heavenly blessings,' and so on, every morning and evening, and attend church, and the Lord will save you if you converse with him wisely." How important it is in our time for the salvation of the soul to remember, to keep in mind and heart these most precious predictions and instructions of our Venerable Lavrentiy of Chernigoff, and we see how many of his prophecies are already coming true before our eyes. Therefore, it is necessary for us to be attentive and cautious, so as not to fall into the trap of the coming Antichrist and Satan.